Post 1. Title: Am I the jerk for falling for someone off limits? Well, I'm only asking because my brother certainly thinks I'm the jerk. Let me back up. I'm the younger of two boys. My brother David is about 3.5 years older than me, but people never really thought of us that way. I don't mean that in a bad way or anything. It's just that I always had a certain charisma, I guess you could say. People liked me. Teachers, neighbors, my friends' parents. Even when I was a kid, adults would always say stuff like, "You're going to go far," or "You've got a spark to you." That kind of thing. David, on the other hand, was more of a straight arrow, quiet, book smart, very responsible. I guess you could say he was dependable. He followed rules, did what he was supposed to do, never made waves. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the kind of guy he is. Growing up, I was the one who got noticed. I was good at sports, funny, always had a new girlfriend. David could bring someone home once in a while, sure, but I had that natural charm. It's just how I've always been. My parents loved it. They used to say I had main character energy, before that was even a phrase. They'd tell their friends how I lit up a room, how I was destined for great things. My mom still keeps the school newsletter where I was student of the month 4th grade on the fridge. Meanwhile, David just kind of existed. They never said anything mean about him or anything, but he wasn't the one they bragged about. David's girlfriends were usually the quiet type, sweet girls. I always made sure to be nice to them, crack a joke here, help them carry something there, just being friendly. Sometimes they'd laugh a little too hard at what I said, or hang around me at parties, even when David was in the room. Not my fault I got along with people. If anything, I figured I was helping. David never really said much about it. It wasn't like David and I didn't get along. We were brothers. We weren't best friends, but we weren't enemies either. I think he just always felt like he had to take care of everything, and I never really saw why that was a problem. He was better at it. When chores needed doing, David did them. When we had to be somewhere on time, David made sure we left on time. That was just the natural order of things. My job was to bring some fun into the house, and I did. My parents loved having people over and showing off their outgoing younger son. David didn't mind, I don't think. I mean, he'd complain sometimes if I didn't help with dishes or if I forgot to feed the dog, but I figured he was just being dramatic. He liked responsibility. He was good at it, so why not let him have it? Now, as we got older, things didn't really change that much. I was still the one people gravitated toward. I don't say that to brag, it's just what it is. I was homecoming king. Twice. I started a landscaping side hustle in high school just from chatting up some of the moms at my baseball games. David had a job at the library and tutored kids in math. Again, nothing wrong with that. But we were just different. My parents always supported both of us, but I think they understood that I was the one with the real potential. They used to say things like, "You've got that spark that can't be taught." If I brought home a B, they'd say it wasn't about grades, I had people skills, and that was going to matter more. With David, it was more like, okay, good. You know, polite, but not impressed. I'm not saying they didn't love him, of course they did, but they saw what I brought to the table. I was the one who could really go somewhere. David was the serious one. He wanted to be the responsible one. Fine by me. Post 2. Everything in the family was just fine. Sure, David sometimes got this weird edge to him when I'd make a joke or show up late to dinner, but that was just him being uptight. We were a normal family, or at least I thought we were, until the big divide started. Things really shifted when David went to college. He got accepted to a good school, nothing crazy fancy, but respectable. The problem was, our parents didn't have the money to help. They said times were tight, the economy was rough, and they'd already stretched themselves thin. David took that pretty hard. He worked a lot when he went to college, or at least he told us he did. I think he was just making excuses to never come home for holidays. It seemed like he was just sulking. Well, joke's on him because, honestly, he was barely missed. Sorry to be harsh, but it's the truth. But when I graduated a few years later, suddenly the financial situation looked different. My mom sat me down and told me they'd been saving up a little and that it would be unfair if they didn't at least give me a head start. They said they couldn't afford to send me away, but they could help cover tuition for a local college and keep me at home rent-free. I didn't see the issue. They were just doing what any good parents would do. Besides, it's not like I asked them for anything. They offered. David didn't see it that way. He barely said a word when he found out. Just got quiet. I remember he came home for dinner that week and barely touched his food. Our mom kept trying to talk to him about this charity gala she wanted me to volunteer at, and he just nodded and said, "That's nice," like his brain was somewhere else. When he left, he didn't say goodbye. My dad said he was just tired. I figured he'd get over it. He didn't. That was the beginning of him pulling away. He didn't scream or accuse anyone or anything. He just kind of cooled, texted less, showed up late, gave me these looks sometimes like he was sizing me up and not liking what he saw. I thought he was being childish about it, honestly. I mean, he's the older brother. He's supposed to be the mature one. I didn't control what our parents did. If they gave me more help, it was probably because they saw something in me that they didn't see in him. College didn't exactly go the way I hoped. I didn't fail out or anything, I just wasn't feeling it. The professors were boring, the classes weren't practical, and the whole thing felt like a waste of time. I was more of a people person anyway. My mom said maybe college just wasn't the right path for someone like me. She even told me she thought David had boxed himself in by being too rigid. So I took a break, tried a couple different jobs, did some deliveries, some door-to-door sales, that kind of thing. I was figuring things out. That's when the idea came up that maybe I should move to the city and do some networking, as my dad called it. And it just so happened that David lived in the city, worked there, had a place, was doing the whole adult routine. My mom said it would be a great opportunity for us to reconnect. My dad said David owed it to the family to help me get my feet under me. I wasn't thrilled about the idea at first. I didn't exactly see myself crashing with my older brother, but the way they explained it, it made sense. They said it wouldn't be forever, just a few months to help me get set up. They said David had the space. They said it was time he stepped up and helped his brother, the same way the family had helped him. And so, after a few calls and some awkward back and forth, David agreed. That's how I ended up living in his apartment, with him and his wife. But that's for part 3. Post 3. Her name's Emily. She and David had been married for 3 years when I moved in. I'd met her a handful of times before that holidays. Quick visits, but we never really talked much. She was polite, sweet in that sort of Midwestern way. I wouldn't have said we had much in common back then. But when I moved in, things shifted. She had just lost her job in tech, some corporate downsizing, and was between things. She spent a lot of time at home, and so did I, at least at first, which meant we saw a lot of each other. At first, it was just small talk, then longer chats, then full-on afternoon walks and movie marathons while David was at work. It wasn't planned, it just happened. I know how that sounds. I do. But you have to understand it wasn't some trashy fling. We connected, really connected. It felt like we just got each other in a way other people didn't. Emily said she'd never felt like anyone really listened to her before. I told her I'd never felt so seen. I wasn't trying to ruin anything. We just ended up in the same orbit. And once we were, it felt inevitable. David was barely around anyway. He was working long hours, always tense, always tired. He'd come home and barely say anything. Emily would try to ask about his day, and he'd grunt some one-word response and go shower. I'd ask her how her day was and actually mean it. She started smiling more when she was around me, laughing more. I never planned any of this, but feelings are feeling. And sometimes things happen you didn't expect. It started with a kiss. We were watching some old movie, and she made a joke about how the main guy looked like me. He didn't. I laughed, and she looked at me for a second too long. Next thing I knew, we were kissing. We both pulled back right away. She said she was confused. I said I was too. But we didn't stop. It wasn't just physical. We'd stay up talking for hours. We had our own little inside jokes. Emily said she hadn't felt like herself in years, that David made her feel small, like she always had to be the serious one. With me, she could breathe. I know what people are going to say. I've read enough Reddit threads to know how this looks, but it wasn't like that. We didn't sneak around. We just let things unfold. And David didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't want to. Post 4. It's like David had a sixth sense for being irritated. The closer Emily and I got, the more prickly he became. Every time he walked in the door, it was like he was bracing himself. He'd look at us like we were doing something wrong just for laughing at a movie or sitting too close on the couch. One night he said, "Do you even have a plan?" I was like, "What?" And he goes, "You've been here for months. Have you networked at all?" Emily jumped in before I could answer. She said, "He's trying, David. Maybe if you weren't so condescending every time he opened his mouth, he'd feel a little more confident." I was stunned, in a good way. I didn't even know she felt that strongly. David just stared at her, like she'd slapped him. From then on, things were different. The air in the apartment felt heavy all the time. David would go quiet for entire dinners. He'd do that thing where he rinsed his plate and left it on the counter like that was somehow more respectful than just throwing it in the sink. Emily started defending me more little things at first, but then bigger stuff too. Like when David got upset that I hadn't cleaned the guest bathroom and she told him, "He's not your intern. Maybe ask nicely." And yeah, maybe I wasn't out every day pounding the pavement, but come on, that whole world's about who you know. I was planting seeds. You don't build a career overnight. People think success is this step-by-step thing. But real success? That takes instinct, vision, timing. I wasn't going to settle for some soul-sucking office job just to prove something to David. That's not who I am. Emily got that. She said she believed I was one good opportunity away from changing everything. She said I reminded her of the people who built things from nothing. Entrepreneurs, artists, people who saw the world differently. David thought I was lazy, but Emily saw potential. She believed in me, and honestly, that felt better than anything. Post 5. The turning point was probably the night David came home early and caught us laughing in the kitchen. We were just making popcorn. That's literally all it was. Emily had this stupid joke about how microwave popcorn bags are aggressive because they puff up like they're going to explode, and I mimed one attacking me, and she doubled over. I was doing this whole bit, swinging the bag around like a sword, and she had tears in her eyes from laughing. Then the front door opened. David just froze. Didn't say anything for a long second. Then he said, "Is this seriously what you two do all day?" Emily's face dropped. "What's your problem?" He looked at both of us and said, "My problem is that I come home from work, again, to find you giggling like teenagers while he does absolutely nothing to move out. It's been 4 months. What exactly is the plan here?" I opened my mouth, but Emily cut in. "He has a plan. Not that you've ever bothered to ask. You treat him like he's some burden when all he's trying to do is figure out his next step." David laughed, not the fun kind either. "His next step? He sleeps till noon and watches TV with my wife. If I wanted to support a failed influencer, I'd adopt a TikTok bro." I'll be honest, that one got under my skin. Failed? First of all, I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm building connections, building a brand. It's called being strategic. You don't launch too early, or you blow your momentum. You time it right. You wait for the right opportunity, and you strike. Emily lost it. "He's trying. Not everyone wants to live a miserable little office life like you. He actually has ambition." David stared at her for a second. "You know what? I don't even know who you are anymore." He left the kitchen, slammed the door to the bedroom. Emily looked shaken. I went to comfort her, and she leaned into me, her face against my chest. We just stood there for a while. It felt intense, electric. That night, she didn't come to bed until hours later, and when she did, I heard her crying through the wall. The weird thing? I didn't feel guilty. Not really. I just kept thinking, if David treated her right, none of this would have happened. Post 6. After that night, things shifted fast. Emily started making separate dinners, not even subtle about it. She'd cook some elaborate salmon or steak dish for the two of us, then leave David's portion cold in the fridge with a sticky note. One night he asked, "So, what am I? Your roommate now?" And Emily just shrugged and said, "You always act like one." He started staying at work later. I think part of him was hoping Emily would miss him, come crawling back or whatever. But if anything, it just gave her and me more time to ourselves. We'd sit on the couch after dinner, feet touching, sharing a blanket, watching documentaries about entrepreneurs who started with nothing. She'd glance at me during those parts, like, "See, that could be you." I'd nod like I was being humble, but honestly, yeah, it could be me. People don't understand how close I've come. I've had real traction before people just don't get how much timing and mindset matters, and it doesn't help when you're surrounded by doubters like David who keep trying to shove you into a cubicle. Emily believed. She said I had vision. She said most people only see what's right in front of them, but I was playing the long game. And yeah, it felt good to be seen. Actually seen. It made sense to her, the way nothing I ever said made sense to David. She said he was rigid, too in love with control, too married to his own bitterness. I couldn't argue. Sometimes when David would come home, we'd still be sitting on the couch in the same blanket. He never said anything, but the way he looked at us, like he was the one being cheated on, like he was the outsider. One night, he just stood there in the doorway and said, "You know what? I want a date, a move-out date, not a vibe, not a maybe, a real number. When are you leaving?" I laughed. I didn't mean to, it just came out. "Why are you acting like I'm freeloading? I'm networking. You think connections grow on trees?" He just stared at me. "You don't even leave the apartment." Emily crossed her arms. "He's working on things. You wouldn't understand." That was the moment. I saw it in David's face. The actual moment something in him broke. He said, "You're both unbelievable," and walked into the bedroom. I wanted to feel bad. I really did. But all I felt was relief. The next day, Emily texted me from the bedroom while he was in the shower. It just said, maybe this was always supposed to happen. Post 7. After that text, everything started to feel like a formality. We didn't have some dramatic kiss or confession, not yet. We weren't stupid, but there was a quiet understanding between us, an inevitability. We shared a look over coffee, lingered a little too long doing dishes, that kind of thing. David would walk into a room and we'd go silent, and he'd pretend not to notice, but the tension was thick. He started sleeping on the couch, claimed it was because he was having trouble falling asleep, but Emily told me he'd always been a heavy sleeper before. That couch got more use in 2 weeks than in the entire time he'd owned it. I think he was hoping she'd beg him to come back to bed. She didn't. We had this unspoken arrangement where we waited for him to leave for work before spending time together. One morning, he left early, and I came into the kitchen and found Emily still in her pajamas, hair up, coffee already made. She passed me a mug and said, "It's weird. It almost feels like he's the one visiting us." It was electric. I said, "Well, we're the only ones who actually talk to each other." She smiled and said, "Exactly." She started opening up more about how things with David had been strained for a while, how he always made her feel like a checklist item, that he didn't see her anymore, that with me, it felt like she could breathe again, like she remembered who she used to be. It up. Who wouldn't? At one point, I said, "I don't know when this happened, but I think I'd do anything for you." She didn't say anything for a second, then looked at me and said, "You're the only person who's believed in me since I lost my job. That means more than you know." We almost kissed. Almost. But the garage door opened. David was back. Something about his meeting getting cancelled. We jumped apart like teenagers. I made some excuse about grabbing my laptop, and Emily disappeared into the bedroom. That was the closest we came. Until the night of the fundraiser. David's company was hosting some charity dinner thing, and he practically begged Emily to go with him, said it would look good, that people would ask questions if she didn't show. She asked me if she should. I told her it was up to her. She ended up going, but she came home early. I was half asleep on the couch when the door opened. She stepped in, heels in one hand, mascara smudged, and just said, "I don't want to pretend anymore." We kissed, and this time, we didn't stop. Post 8. It had been about 2 weeks. 2 perfect weeks. We hadn't exactly talked about what we were doing, not in so many words. It just happened. One night after dinner, Emily kissed me in the hallway when David wasn't home. After that, it became a regular thing. A look here, a brush of the hand there, and then hours alone together on the couch or in the bedroom. And not just her bedroom. Sometimes we'd go into David's room too because, well, it felt bigger. And by that point, we weren't exactly keeping score anymore. That night, we were in David's bed. It was late. We hadn't expected him home for hours. He'd picked up an extra shift again. Something about covering for a co-worker. Emily was on top of me, laughing quietly into my neck, both of us breathless. The door was closed, the lights low. I was running my hands up her back when suddenly I felt it, a presence. That weird crawling sensation when you know someone's looking at you. I turned my head, and there he was, David, standing in the doorway, just watching. I don't know how long he'd been there. Long enough, probably. Long enough to see everything. Emily didn't even notice at first. I froze. My whole body went rigid. "What the—" I started, pushing her off me and yanking a sheet up. "What the hell, David? You ever heard of knocking?" He didn't move. His face was unreadable, pale, jaw clenched. "Seriously?" I said, louder this time, sitting up. "You're just gonna stand there like some creep?" And then he moved. 1 step. 2. He crossed the room in seconds and hit me. 1 clean punch, right across the jaw. It wasn't wild. It wasn't theatrical. Just fast and solid. My head snapped sideways, and I saw stars. I landed half off the bed, clutching my face, stunned. Emily screamed. She scrambled for the blanket again, yelling something I don't even remember what. But David didn't say a single word. He just turned around and walked out. Door open, keys in his hand, gone. I lay there, bleeding from the mouth, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Post 10. We drove straight to my parents' house that night. I didn't know where else to go. Emily was still shaking when we got in the car, and I kept waiting for her to say something, anything, but she didn't, just stared out the window like someone had unplugged her. And me? I was furious. Not even embarrassed, furious. My own brother, kicking me out of the apartment like I was some random squatter. After everything I'd put up with from him, I called my mum on the way there. She answered on the first ring, and when I told her what happened, how David attacked me, and then changed the locks while we were gone, she gasped like someone had smacked her. "Sweetheart," she said, "come home, right now. We'll talk when you get here." By the time we pulled into the driveway, both my parents were waiting outside in their pajamas. My mom practically yanked open the door before I'd even put the car in park. She hugged me, then turned to Emily and wrapped her up too. "I cannot believe David would do this," she said. "What is wrong with him?" My dad didn't say much, just grabbed our bags out of the back seat and brought them inside. Emily looked like she might cry. My mom kept saying, "It's okay now. You're safe. You're with us." That night, we slept in my old room, together. Emily didn't talk much. She curled up under the blanket and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I held her hand, told her it was going to be fine, that this was probably a blessing in disguise. The next morning, my mom made us pancakes and said we could stay as long as we needed. I always had a feeling about that marriage, she said, shaking her head. Something about the way he acted. So cold, so controlling. Emily didn't say anything. He never appreciated her, my mom went on. Or you. Honestly, he's probably just jealous. Jealous of what? I asked. Of your heart, she said, putting down the syrup. Of the way people are drawn to you. He's always been stiff. He doesn't know how to connect. I mean, who kicks out their own brother in the middle of the night? That's not normal. That's cruel. Emily finally spoke up softly. He didn't even look at me, she said. He just walked away, like I was nothing. My mom reached across the table and grabbed her hand. You're not nothing, she said. You're family, and you're safe here. My dad grunted something about how David needed to grow up and start thinking about someone other than himself. He didn't even ask for details. I think they'd already made up their minds. We started to settle in. It was supposed to be temporary, but my mom said we shouldn't rush anything. She brought out old quilts for the guest room, made a point of cooking Emily's favorite meals. Emily got quiet, kind of floaty. She wasn't crying anymore, but she wasn't smiling either. Still, she let my mom fuss over her. She even laughed when my mom called her my future daughter-in-law by accident, although I didn't miss the way she looked at me after. I smiled back. What else was I supposed to do? David made his choice. Now, we were making ours. Post 11. Living with my parents wasn't exactly a dream come true, but it was familiar. Comfortable even. They let us stay in the basement and Emily mostly kept to herself. She still didn't have a job, something about the market being tight and her old company going through budget cuts, but whatever. She made dinner sometimes, folded laundry. My mom didn't love having her there, but she didn't hate it either. Not at first. Then one afternoon, I came home and found my dad red in the face, shouting in the kitchen. My mom looked like she'd just been slapped. And David was standing there, arms crossed, calm as anything. You are insane, my dad snapped. After everything, you think you can just walk away? It's not mine, David said, like he was reading off a weather report. I didn't understand what he was talking about, not at first, but then I saw Emily standing halfway down the stairs, pale, one hand over her stomach. That was how I found out. Apparently, she'd gone to see David without telling me, told him she was pregnant and claimed there was a chance it could be his, which was a joke. We'd been together for weeks before he even found out. But I guess she thought if she said the right thing, he'd take her back, fix things. Obviously, that didn't happen. He told her to get lost. Then he told us, came straight to my parents and laid it out. He was filing for divorce and contesting paternity. Didn't raise his voice, didn't insult anyone, just said it, then turned and left, like he was washing his hands of the whole thing. My mom was in tears. My dad kept pacing and muttering about how David always had to make everything so difficult. Emily disappeared downstairs and didn't come up the rest of the night. I didn't follow her. A few days later, the divorce papers showed up in the mailbox. Certified letter. She opened them in front of everyone. My mom tried to act like she was shocked, like she hadn't known what was coming, but she couldn't even fake it well. Emily just sat there at the kitchen table with the envelope in her lap, blinking like she couldn't believe it. After that, she changed, got clingy, started calling me babe all the time, rubbing her belly like it was supposed to mean something. She talked about baby names, about wedding colors, about nursery themes. I'd walk in the door and she'd beam like we were some newlywed couple. I didn't like it at all. She used to feel exciting, like I'd pulled off something wild and incredible. But now, she followed me from room to room. She'd start crying if I went out for air and didn't come back within 20 minutes. She kept trying to sit next to me, even when I was clearly trying to scroll through my phone or nap on the couch. It felt like the walls were closing in, and I started to realize I didn't want this, any of it. I didn't want to be a dad, I didn't want to be a husband, and I definitely didn't want to be stuck in a basement with someone who kept acting like we were soulmates just because we made a mistake. But it was too late to say that out loud. Not with my parents treating the pregnancy like the second coming, not with Emily looking at me like I was her last hope. So I kept quiet, for now. Post 12. It's honestly kind of sad how fast people will change their tune. 1 minute, you're the golden couple who had a rough start, but everyone's excited to meet the baby. The next, you're just two freeloaders who take up too much room at the dinner table. After Emily got those papers, she just crumpled. I guess she thought David would still take her back. She kept saying things like, he needs time, and he's just being prideful. I told her to let it go, that she had me now. But the truth, I was already feeling done. The spark we had before, whatever thrill came from sneaking around, whispering behind closed doors, that was gone. I'd see her in my old pajamas, hair in a messy bun, and I'd think, this is what I gave everything up for? She got clingy, real clingy, wouldn't let me leave the house without asking where I was going, wanted me to sit with her during her morning sickness, kept bringing up names for the baby. She even asked if I wanted to go with her to the ultrasound. I told her I had stuff to do that day. I didn't, but I couldn't sit through that and pretend like this was all some fairy tale ending. It wasn't. My parents were still trying to act like everything was fine. My mom knitted this awful little yellow hat and left it on the kitchen table like some kind of peace offering. My dad kept talking to Emily like she was their daughter-in-law already, asking if she needed anything, how she was feeling, offering to drive her to appointments. But behind closed doors, I could hear them whispering about how long we'd be staying, if Emily could maybe find work from home, if I'd looked into getting a real job yet. I wasn't sitting around doing nothing. I was working on ideas. I had a business pitch, a really solid one, but no one wanted to hear it. Emily said I should start with something part-time, just for now. She didn't get it. People like me weren't meant for cubicles and drive-through windows. I had potential. David still didn't call. My mum would get quiet every time someone said his name. Once, I saw her trying to text him and then delete the message. Emily tried again too, some long dramatic email, I think. David blocked her. It's like everyone was waiting for him to swoop in and take this all off our shoulders. The way my dad put it, he's had time to cool off now. Maybe he'll do what's right. That's how they saw it. David doing the right thing meant David stepping in and pretending this baby was his. Like that's a normal thing to ask someone to do. When the paternity test came back and confirmed it was mine, the mood changed. I don't even know what I expected. My mom cried, but not in the happy way. My dad sat me down and said, "You made this mess, and now you're going to fix it. So guess who's getting married next month? No ring, no ceremony, just a form at City Hall and a screaming baby due any week now. We're still in my old room. My dad moved the weight bench out and replaced it with a crib. I had to pick up a job at the local grocery store, part-time, cashier. It's not forever, just until one of my bigger ideas pans out. David still won't answer calls. Emily keeps saying it's not fair that he's just pretending none of this happened. And me, I'm trying to keep it together. But I'll say it, if he really cared about this family, maybe he'd at least chip in for diapers. But I guess he's too busy sulking. Post 3 It's been 6 months since the baby was born. His name is Jackson. Emily picked it. I didn't really care. He cries a lot. Like, a lot. All hours of the night. Emily's exhausted and gets mad if I don't help. But what am I supposed to do? I work late. Those 4-hour shifts at the store don't end themselves. Plus, I'm usually brainstorming when I get home. She doesn't understand that I'm trying to build something here, that I'm laying the groundwork for us to have a real life. I'm not just clocking in and out and calling that a future. We barely talk anymore. She watches those reality shows and cries over everything. Keeps saying things like, "I thought this would feel different and I miss who we used to be." Whatever. That version of her, the one who used to light up when I walked into the room, is long gone. Now she just looks tired. I never wanted this. I don't even like kids. I told her that before. She said I'd change my mind. I didn't. My mum tries to help, but she's been pulling away too. I caught her rolling her eyes when Emily asked her to pick up formula. My dad just reads the paper and says stuff like, "Life comes at you fast." And David? Not a word. He changed his number. My mum said she ran into him once at the farmer's market and he just nodded and walked away. Like we're strangers now. Like he didn't used to be my brother. I've written him 3 emails. I didn't say anything dramatic. Just told him he was being cold. Told him that Emily made mistakes too, and that if he really was the bigger person he pretends to be, he'd find a way to forgive. Not just her, but me too. He never replied. He's doing well, still has that job, still lives in the city, probably eating brunch every weekend like nothing ever happened. Meanwhile, I'm stuck in my childhood bedroom with a woman I barely recognize and a baby who won't stop screaming. I guess I just wish people could see the full picture. I didn't plan this. I wasn't trying to steal anyone's wife. It wasn't like that. It's just Emily saw me for who I really was. We had a connection. We still do, in some way. Isn't that worth something? So yeah, maybe I made some mistakes, but I'm not the jerk here. I just fell in love with the wrong person. Is that really so unforgivable?